All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to speak about the single thing that we have to keep in mind the most, the single thing in the Quran that God emphasizes and which we should which we should try to cultivate in our lives. And I was just thinking about this for a few weeks, thinking about it for a while. Then I had a discussion with my wife, and I came to a resolution on this matter. I was thinking, what is the single thing the Quran emphasizes the most, and what makes the Quranic Muslim in the true sense of the word, not a Sunni or Shia, but one who surrenders to God, one such a person, one who is on the way of Abraham, the practice of Abraham? What makes this person different to the rest of the world? Their single distinguishing marker, like I don't know, what makes a four-leaf clover? What gives it its distinguishing marker? It's the fact that it has four leaves. What makes I don't know, what's something that has a distinguishing marker? What gives a cactus its distinguishing marker? It usually has these spikes or protrusions of some kind. Everything has a distinguishing marker that makes it what it is, that kind of defines it more or less. And what makes the Quranic man, or a Muslim man, the Muslim man, or the Muslim woman, the Muslim woman? What is that single thing? And really, we do mostly the same things that all the disbelievers do. We have families, we have children, we have to go to work, we have to come home, we have to drive a car, we got to do this, we got to do that. We got to deal with all the, I should say, the events and things that we're dragged into by this world. Both of us, the disbeliever and the believer. I mean, I go to my work, I do my cleaning, and there might be an atheist who has the exact same job as me who does his cleaning as well. But what makes me different from him? The thing that distinguishes the Muslim man and woman from the disbeliever is that we are mindful of God in everything we do. That is the thing. So, when I am at the workplace cleaning, the disbelieving man is not remembering God, whereas I'm remembering the Lord. I'm giving thanks to Him while I'm cleaning. I pray. When I drive the car, versus the disbeliever when he's driving his car to go to work, he doesn't remember the Lord before he drives, but I do. That is the single thing. And we want to try to keep God in our mind as much as possible. Be utterly absorbed and assumed into the thought of Him. Be completely and utterly enthralled in the thoughts of your Lord and think about Him constantly. That's what makes the believer the believer. That is what makes alladina amanu alladina amanu. It is that we are remembering of God in everything we do. Because there are atheists out there that give charity. I'm sure there's an atheist every now and then. Probably not that many. Certainly it's more believers who do it because we have a better reason to give charity. But there are atheists who give charity to homeless, or I don't know, anybody who might be asking. But they don't do it with the remembrance of God. They do it for the person. They do it to receive thanks, to see them happy, to see them smile, to feel like they're a good person. And remember what God says in the Quran. When we give charity, we say, we don't seek your thanks. We only seek God's approval, not yours. But when the believer gives a charity, the same thing, we hand over that food, that sandwich, the apple, whatever, which the person's going to eat, the food, the clothing. We do it out of our love of God. And that is what not only defines us, but that is the thing that determines the value of our actions. Whatever we do it out of our love of God, keeping God in our mind. And I remember my wife shared with me this quote in this book she was reading, The Practice of the Presence of God. It's not a quote, but it was a story of a guy who was like this Christian, I don't know, monk or saint or whoever. And he had this job where he was washing dishes and cleaning or whatever. And he absolutely despised washing the dishes. He found it to be dreadful. But when he started doing it out of his love of God, like kind of thinking of it in the sense of, hey, God has put me here. God has placed me in this role of cleaning and washing dishes. This is what I need to do right now. This is my purpose in this moment, is to get this task done. Yeah, this is like my charity in a sense. I'm going to do it out of the love of God. When he picked up a fork or a spoon on the ground, he picked it up out of the love of God. When he washed dishes, he did it out of his love of God. Whatever your station is in life, fulfilling it deliberately, intentionally, in good faith, and with the remembrance of God, that is what makes all the difference. And that quote or that story she shared from the practice of presence of God, it really rung a bell with me, because this is exactly what I'm seeing in the Quran. We live lives just like the atheists. There might be an atheist farmer in the ancient world. There might be a disbelieving statesman, or I don't know, construction worker. But the difference is, the believer, whatever he does it out of his love of God. So I'm not a construction worker, but if I was a construction worker, when I put in the hammer into the nail, I'm doing it out of my love of the Lord. When I put that beam in the ground, I'm doing it out of the love of the Lord. When I provide for my family, it's not just to see my family happy, I'm doing it out of the love of my Lord. Whatever I do, it's out of the love of God. When you do it like that, then you are truly exercising and cultivating that which makes you Muslim, the single distinguishing factor. So that's what I want you guys to keep in mind. Always remember your Lord in everything. Do whatever you do. And this might seem like a kind of far out there concept, but you have to think of everything that comes in your life as something which God has placed before you, a duty and a task with a meaning and a purpose. And it's not something you just got to do and get it over with. Everything that comes, do it deliberately, do it intentionally, do it with good faith, do it with the full force of your efforts, whatever you can put in. Like, put your heart and soul into everything you do, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're working out, whatever it is, and do it all out of your love of the Lord. Because when I work out, it's not fundamentally so that I can look good. It's because I want to be capable and strong by God's leave for my family. I want to be not an embarrassment upon my family, but a capable man. So I work out of my love of the Lord, to honor and take care of this body that He has given me, this physical form. So that's what I want you to keep in mind. And I want to share with you many Quranic verses to justify what I'm saying. That is the thing that I see the most in the Quran. What makes the prophets and the messengers different? Obviously, you could say they do deeds of righteousness, no problem. That comes out of our remembrance of God. But they were farmers. They were regular people. They ate food. They walked in the marketplaces, to quote the Quran. But what they had a deep and strong remembrance of the Lord in all that they did. That is what determines whether our deeds will avail us or whether our deeds will be made vain in the hereafter. Who did we dedicate to, and who did we remember, and what did we do it for? So just read all these verses in the Quran. Surah Talaq. And whoever is mindful of God, He will make their matters easy for them. This is the commandment of God, which He has revealed to you. And whoever is mindful of God, He will absolve them of their sins and reward them immensely. So be mindful of God. Let them live where you live. Let them live where you live, waiting period, according to your means, during their waiting period, according to your means. This is Surah Talaq 2-3. This is enjoined on whoever has faith in God in the last day, and whoever is mindful of God, He will make a way out of them. Surah Tawbah 4-14. So long as they are true to you, be true to them. Indeed, God loves those who are mindful of Him. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:12 through 2:14. Those who are mindful will be above them on the day of judgment. Of course, we mean mindful of God. Remember the verse in the Quran. Quran verse. Remember God standing, sitting, and on your sides. Yep, I'm going to pull that one up too, my dear. Reader, we'll go to reader.Quranic, chapter 3, 191. Oops. Those who remember God standing and sitting and on their sides, and reflect upon the creation of the heavens and the earth. Our Lord, Thou createdst not this to no purpose. Glory be to Thee, and protect Thou us from the punishment of the fire. So you see that? We all do that. We all stand, we all sit, and we're all on our sides. But what makes that a virtuous action? Those who, when they're standing or sitting or on their sides, they remember God. And then the verse in the Quran, Quran verse, remember God when you forget. (1824). The name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Save if God wills, and remember thou thy Lord when thou forgettest, and say thou, it may be that my Lord will guide me nearer than this in rectitude. So remember your Lord when you forget Him. Quran verse. Remember God with the remembrance of your fathers. 2 verse 200. And we could just go on and on. This is the single thing that I see emphasized the most in the Quran. And yeah, you have the good deeds and everything that comes with it. How can you do wicked and disgusting and evil deeds when you're remembering God constantly? That thought will necessarily humble you and purify you over time. And these hadithans who do wicked deeds, they are not remembering God constantly. They are remembering their religion and their culture constantly. I'm talking about remembering your creator, which is what the Quran talks about. Chapter 2, verse 200. And when you have concluded your rites, your rituals, your manasika, and when you've concluded those, remember God like your remembrance of your fathers, or with stronger remembrance. And among men is he who says, Our Lord, give thou to us in the world, and he has no portion in the hereafter. And among them is he who says, Our Lord, give thou to us in the world good, and in the hereafter good, and protect thou us from the punishment of the fire. And those have a portion from what they've earned, and God is swift in reckoning. So all of our efforts, we must consecrate them to God. Even these days, I've been spending more time fishing. I'm trying to really master this craft because I desire to pass this on to my children. It's such a beautiful hobby in the sense that it's better than, and there's going to be no video games for my children anyways, but it's better than playing video games or watching shows. You take them out into nature. They get intimate with the process of life and death, that life inherently requires suffering, requires death. That's just a part of the world. You know, the big bass, he eats the smaller fish that are floating around and the worms that are floating around in the water. That requires pain and suffering. I have to split that worm and put it on the hook. That requires pain and suffering. I have to kill that fish and then cut him up and then eat him. That requires pain and suffering. It allows the child to be intimately familiar with the realities of this world, that pain and suffering are a part of this world. And it allows them to remember the great dominion that God has given man over the earth. I mean, this is just a little bit of a side rant, but I remember whenever I'm out fishing, like there's a lot of pain associated with this. I'm using these sharp hooks and stabbing these worms and crappies and bass and this and that, causing them injury just purely for my enjoyment and nourishment and my family's enjoyment and nourishment. And this activity, it forces kids to calm down, be close to the realities of life and death and pain and blood, instead of being in this insulated, bubbled world where they don't know what's real and what's not. And then this caters to certain delusions in the mind. It brings about delusion. I want to be able to pass this on because it also teaches kids to calm down, because if kids are freaking out, and kids are so spurgy nowadays, kids are raised horribly. I see them. I'm around children all the time, and just where I go with work and everything like that. So I see these kids around me, and they're absolutely crazy. They are sugar rushed out of their mind, like processed sugar rushed out of their mind, processed food out of their mind, skibidi toilet, phone, video games out of their mind. They can't sit still, or they can't do anything relaxing. And if you try to bring that mentality to the creek or the pond, you're going to scare away all the fish. So this is a skill I want to cultivate. And these experiences of being around life, death, pain, suffering, blood, and I know it sounds crazy, but I would say what's crazier is sheltering your kid from that kind of reality. I'm not saying you put horror movies in front of them, but just real stuff like fishing, the real hunting. This requires. There are certain times in life that blood, death, gore, violence, fear is required. In times of war, in times of acquiring food, you need this. God has put this in the natural world. The jaguar, when he hunts the, I don't know, what do even jaguars eat? Jaguar diet. Okay, yeah, when the jaguar hunts down the deer, and the deer is getting his guts eaten out alive while he's alive, and the jaguar just gorging himself on his flesh and his insides are outside. This requires a lot of fear being instilled in that deer. When I'm holding, I literally, it's a beautiful and amazing experience. I'm holding this fish in my hands, this bass in my hands, and I can see, or this crappie, and I can see the fear in his eyes, because obviously he has no idea what's going on. He was just living his crappy life, living his. By the way, I'm not cussing here. Crappy is actually the name of the fish for those who are not fishermen. So I'm looking at this crappy in my hands, this bass, and they were living their crappy bass life. They bit on my lure, they bit on my worm, and now suddenly they're out of the water. They have this sharp hook in their mouth. This, it necessarily, I should say, it's sort of a cold ice plunge. It's an ice plunge which I think is beneficial for people. In the West, we are so separated from what is real and what is not. Most people genuinely they feel as though they are, even though they eat meat, they are unable to slaughter an animal, especially the men mainly. Women, I get it, they have more of like a tender heart towards these things, but men are unable to slaughter an animal. You're unable to put out a cow or put out a deer or put out some sheep or whatever you're eating, or hunt a fish there, or split a worm into pieces. People are unable to do this, yet this we need this stuff in order to survive. So I want to be able to introduce this world of reality to my children, and this comes out of my love of God. Ultimately, my love of the Lord spurs me on to get into hobbies that bring me closer to the real nature of the world that God made, to grow in wisdom myself and to allow my children to grow in wisdom. So it's all in dedication. Everything you do in life must be a dedication to your Lord, and that is what makes all the difference. And even you can think of another perfect example of this is the worm or whatever you're using as a bait. Whether you're using live fish bait, you're tossing on a bluegill in order to throw it in the water to hopefully catch yourself a catfish, or you're using mealworms or night crawlers or a grasshopper or a frog or whatever you found around the creek, you're using it as a bait. This, his suffering is something that literally has to happen. The more his suffering is prolonged, this bait, the better it is for me, because when I put the worm and I loop him around himself multiple times, stabbing himself onto that hook, if he dies, the fish are less likely to strike that worm because they have a hunter predatory instinct. These fish, they want to see something wiggling and moving. So actually, my goal is to keep that worm alive, or that grasshopper or whatever alive as long as possible, struggling on that hook so that it looks like an appealing target for the fish to strike. Now their hunter instinct kicks in and they go in for the kill. They bite my hook and then I pull him out. So in that instance, I'm not saying you just cause suffering for no reason, not at all, but in that instance, prolonged suffering of that bait, or that bluegill which is hanging on the end of the hook, and you're waiting for the catfish to strike it. If that bluegill is moving around, the catfish is more than likely to strike it. That prolonged suffering is favorable and beneficial to me, so I like that cold hard reality dose, and I want to be able to share that with my children. And overall, you can see that being involved in a world like that, where you see the realities of life, death, pain, suffering, all these things, it would necessarily make you a more realistic and practical person. And just it also, like I said, it allows you to remember the favors that God has given man. Look at all the favors that God has given us. God tells us to remember the favors that he, the fish in the sea, he gave you succulent flesh. You see the boats plowing there and seeking the benefit and grace of God. God has allowed me to do that. He has allowed me to inflict pain and suffering and fear onto these living creatures just for my enjoyment and my benefit. God has given me the right to do that. God has given me the right to take down that jaguar and to make a beautiful jacket out of his coat. God has given me the right to take down that moose and to hang up his antlers in my house as a trophy, and also, make food out of his meat. Think of the great favors that God has given us. God has allowed us to do all of these things. So it comes back down to, why are you doing these things? I am pursuing these hobbies like hunting and fishing out of my love for the Lord. Fundamentally, it brings me closer to the real world and my child closer to the real world as well, and it serves to shatter delusion and bring you closer to what is a factual aspect of existence. No more delusion, no more insulation, no more bubble wrap, but let's deal with reality as is. I love experiences like that. But other people, they might go out doing these things, fishing, hunting, just for fun, just for entertainment. And if that's the case, it's vain. Everything you do, do it out of your love and remembrance of God. That's really the key. And the thing is, something being fun cannot be the only reason you do it or take part in it. It can be fun as a byproduct, as a side factor, you could enjoy it. I enjoy the fishing, I enjoy the hunting and this and that. That stuff is fun to me, but that's not the reason why I'm doing it. If I was doing things purely for fun, then there are plenty of options I could have chosen. I could have continued dancing. I was a pretty good dancer, but I gave all that stuff up. Why? Because there was no reality component to it. There was no real lesson to dancing that I was getting from it. There was nothing about it that was truly bringing me closer to God. It was purely entertainment, bereft of any philosophical or spiritual principle behind it. That's why I gave up on dancing, despite enjoying it in my early childhood to teen years. I used to be in high school. I was on the badminton team. I enjoyed badminton. I was pretty good at the sport as well, but I gave up on it. Why? Because in the end, it was just entertainment. I'm just playing around with this shuttlecock. I'm playing children's games for fun. I don't want to dedicate my life to this nonsense like basketball or soccer. If you play that stuff, I'm not knocking you, but for it's not for me. Basketball or soccer, these are children's games. If I have a hobby, I want to get in something that really brings me hardcore lessons. So, like the fishing, like the hunting, which I told you the lessons of life, death, suffering that I have to deal with. Although it's, I think, less beneficial, I'm somewhat all right with boxing and MMA to a certain extent, because boxing, and I used to do boxing at least, it teaches you also lessons of suffering, and you get humbled, and you realize you're not the big shot in the world. There's a bigger and stronger guy out there who can whoop your butt. There's a guy who's more skilled than you. It gives you this certain humble part of reality. It gives you a little taste of war. Although I realize it's not that practical, because in real life, real battles usually involve weapons. So it's not something you could carry with you. But there are lessons that you get from it that you wouldn't get from badminton. So all the hobbies that I pick them thinking of what will this impart onto me, which will make me a person who is closer to God and more acquainted with reality. That's what I pick. So everything I do is a dedication or consecration to God. At least that's what I strive for, and that's what you people should strive for as well. And the point of me bringing this up is, the reason I'm doing this is because I want I'm 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 dedicating in some way my fishing to God. I'm doing it in the name of God. I'm not doing it just for my fun. I'm doing it because I want a godly, realistic hobby that brings me and my children and my family closer to the creation, so I can pass that on to them, because I think it will help in making them more godly and more closer to reality. I'm not saying because you fish you're necessarily godly, but I'm saying if you come at it with the right mindset, this natural and wholesome activity, it can teach you a lot of important lessons that can bring you closer to God. So even with my fishing, with my hobbies, with my working out, with my job, with everything I do with this video, I try my best to consecrate my efforts to the Lord. So I want you guys to keep that in your mind. If you have that principle of consecrating to your Lord, it will make everything you do, every wholesome natural thing you do, blessed. And if you forget that principle, then it is meaningless. So keep that all in your mind. That is exactly what the Quran talks about, and that is what makes you Muslim. Remember your Lord day and night. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.